Yo, what's up YouTube? In this video, we're gonna finally lay to rest some of the common issues and complaints that people have when either purchasing or thinking about purchasing a Pocket 4K from Blackmagic. Okay, so welcome back to the channel. I hate when people do that, man. I hate that, man. I don't think I'm gonna do that anymore, man. I think when people talk about either purchasing this camera or researching some of the capabilities of this camera, man, they have a few things that they're not taking into consideration. I'm gonna drive around because I can do that. I can drive around because I have this camera just mounted to my dashboard. This is not mounted at all. It's just literally sitting on my dashboard, which takes us to our very first topic of discussion. Okay, so let's really break this down, man. Let's talk about what this camera does and who it's marketed to. This camera is primarily marketed to individuals out there who maybe run a freelance filmmaking company, kind of like myself, where I'm just, solo running gun, making content either for YouTube or making music video content. Yo, this camera's not made for, oh God, that's gross. This camera's not designed for the dad out there who wants to take their family on a vacation to the mountains in Pennsylvania or something. Are there mountains in Pennsylvania? Man, this is not designed for that. This is not designed to be out shooting photos, to be out, being able to see yourself on the screen, to be running through and getting this smooth footage, autofocusing on everything that you wanted to autofocus to. This is not designed for that, man. Okay, so right now we are looking for the next spot where we're gonna set up, looking for somewhere with kind of muted colors. This looks pretty cool right here. I just don't want to be in direct sunlight. I actually see a pretty dope spot right there. Just don't like all that green. And over here looks pretty sick as well. Let's see if we can get something set up over here, man. So real quick, I'm gonna show you how I get my manual focus, man, set up. So basically I just figure out how far I'm gonna be away from the camera, and I put an item basically where I feel I'm gonna be as far away from the camera. So I think I'm gonna be about that distance away from the camera. Get the focus on that item, whatever it is. And there we go. And now I'm set. Now I know that I can stand about, about this distance from the camera and be in focus. I wanna make sure that this video isn't necessarily like trying to take a big crap on people who maybe are looking at getting this camera, but then, or maybe even purchase this camera, and then maybe are like have complaints about the flip out screen or have complaints about it not being able to autofocus. And so rather than just sit and harp on all the issues that people have with this camera, let's kind of bring a little bit of things into perspective when it comes to some of the capabilities of this camera. So this camera shoots in raw 12-bit, first of all, and it does it internally. So just to take that alone by itself is unheard of in any camera. Even some of the best cameras that Canon makes can't even do that. I think the C70 shoots in even 10-bit, and it doesn't even do it in RAW. And so the fact that this camera is able to shoot 12-bit RAW internally, or has that capability to do so, is super powerful. And then on top of that, the next thing we'll talk about is the fact that the image quality on this camera is arguably very competitive with a Red Komodo or a Canon C200 or really any other cinema camera on the market. So really what it is you're asking for when you make, I guess, certain complaints about either the camera screen not flipping out or it not having IBIS or autofocus, is you're asking like one of those cameras to be able to have those capabilities. I don't really see any ARRI or Red Komodo owners or really any owner of a cinema camera that makes those complaints. First of all, they can't make those complaints, especially about the screen, because those cameras don't even come with any screens at all. At least this camera does have that option. And to be honest with you, the screen isn't bad. I wish it did articulate, but it doesn't, and it's not a deal breaker. Secondly, the fact that this camera does produce image quality comparable to some of these cameras that are 10 or sometimes even 15 times within that price range is just unheard of. You're not gonna find it. So to kind of argue the complaint that it doesn't autofocus or, there's no in-body stabilization, it's not really valid. You wouldn't really be complaining about that if you bought an Alexa or a Red. One of the other complaints about this camera is the fact that the battery doesn't really last that long. This battery lasts about 35 to 45 minutes. This whole video, as a matter of fact, is filmed on one of the Canon CPL, whatever the OEM Canon battery is. It lasts for about 35 to 45 minutes. And then once again, just to make the comparison between this camera and the camera that it competes with, its competition doesn't even allow you to be able to put the battery within those cameras to begin with, so you really don't even have that option. The fact that it does have a screen, the fact that you can put a battery in it, just enables you to be able to take it on certain situations like I am right now, which you really wouldn't have the opportunity to do so if you had another cinema camera that produces about the same image quality. So yeah, man, I definitely don't want this video to come across like any of the issues that anyone has with this camera are invalid, or, you know, I'm better than you because I'm not making these complaints. However, the kind of whole intent of this video is to just try and bring into perspective who the camera manufacturer is marketing these cameras to. This camera in particular is not necessarily aimed at, you know, your bloggers or your travel filmmakers, or even some of you out there who may have taken up filmmaking as a hobby. You know, I was having this kind of same conversation with a local filmmaker of mine, and that's, I don't really see anyone complaining about the things that people complain about with this camera in particular when it comes to like purchasing, you know, a higher end cinema camera. So essentially what that means is that you have a group of individuals or a community of people who are willing to make a purchase of upwards of $10,000, $15,000, in some cases $20,000, and not have these complaints while other people are purchasing a camera that is a fraction of the price, and then they're having these complaints. And so that whole kind of process of, you know, I'd be willing to spend $10,000 on a Red Komodo, but it doesn't have IBIS and you have to manual focus, and obviously the Red Komodo does it does autofocus. I'm not really sure if you can use it in like on a professional set or anything like that, but even if you can, you know, hats off to Komodo, man. You spend 10 grand, I hope that $8,000 difference between the Pocket 4K and 6K and the Red Komodo is worth autofocus. That's neither here nor there, man. If you are indeed looking at purchasing a Pocket 4K and you are not getting paid from creating videos, then this camera, I don't know, man, this camera probably isn't for you. This camera is definitely not marketed for you. So what's gonna end up happening is you're gonna purchase this camera and you're not gonna be completely satisfied. Guys, I can't really talk too loud because the kids just fell asleep, but one of the first things you'll notice about this camera is the fact that the wide angle options for this camera in particular are pretty much non-existent. So right now what you're seeing me on is a Lumix 14mm f2.5, which is a pretty decent camera, or a lens too for that matter. But since it does stop down to 2.5, which is not as good as 1.8, but for it being 14mm f2.5 is pretty low. How I approach using this lens in my filmmaking process is I tend to use it for like my intros and my outros, so there's really not a whole lot of time in between that where I'm using a lens this wide anyway. I'm mostly using my 50 tack or my 85 tack or my Canon 135, so I more or less treat this lens kind of like a drone. But let me know what you guys think about this lens in the description below, or the comments too. That works too. You can put it in there too. If you have anything else about this camera in particular when it comes to some of its faults, I guess I don't really consider them faults because I don't mind doing the things that other people are faulting it for. But if you guys have any other concerns about this camera, or if you found any value out of this video at all, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the growth of this channel. I really do appreciate it. But until then, I'll see you guys in one of my next videos. Peace.